The gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Lucas, now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Secretary Fudge, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
As you've discussed, there are significant challenges to both rental housing and to home ownership, and the cost of a home is simply out of the reach of many Americans. And I know you take this challenge seriously, but Secretary Fudge, could you discuss what you're hearing from communities regarding the greatest barriers to housing, and how have things evolved since you first became secretary in this area in 2021?
Be happy to. Thank you so much. I think that one of the things that we have to realize as a nation is that because we have not built enough housing over the years, there is a supply and demand problem. It's very, very simple math. If you don't have enough housing, the housing that exists is going to be harder to get. And so people raise their prices. Secondly, supply issues for our builders have created another problem. But the biggest issue, Mr. Lucas, is that regulations from state and local governments have increased the cost of building a home by almost 30%. So when you talk about trying to make sure that you can build multifamily residences, you have to look at the regulations. Some of it is zoning. Some of it is the kind of material. Some of it is planning. There are many issues that create a lack of housing. And so what happens is they will not build housing that is not profitable. The only housing that has been profitable over the last years is high-income housing. We are destroying our core communities by not preserving housing. We are building many mansions where we should be building 2- and 4-unit buildings. But the biggest impediment is regulation, and the second biggest is private persons who come in and purchase properties and put them on the rental market. There is an estimate today that in the next 10 years, 40% of all of the housing in this country will be owned by private corporations.
Continuing with that line of thought, with the massive shortage of housing in this country that we face, and we've got to look for opportunities to expand the supply, and you've noted inflation and you've noted a variety of issues. The Oklahoma City branch of the Kansas City Federal Reserve reports at the end of last year that Oklahoma has higher mortgage rates and higher home prices than a few years ago. As Congress works through how to create the best conditions to increase the housing supply and bring down costs, what are some of the issues you anticipate working on with Congress, even during these difficult times, to address that?
We are hopeful that we're going to be able to continue to provide tax credits, but at a higher rate than we are now, that we raise the cap on some of them because things just cost so much more today. We're hopeful that there will be a neighborhood tax credit, which has been proposed by many members of the House and Senate. We're also hopeful that we will actually take a look at what it costs to do housing today and start looking at the supply chain, start looking at people who are monopolizing the market on certain kinds of goods and services. Look at how we do more things locally so that the cost of getting, I was in Alaska. The cost to get materials to Alaska increases the cost of that house threefold. We should be encouraging local resources, local building resources. We should be asking our communities to help us with infrastructure planning. Those are the things that create the problems, Congressman. And so what we're going to be doing is continue to ask for the things that we know are going to be helpful. And the last thing I would say is that as we look at our public housing, most of that housing is 60 years old. And we have more than 1 million units of housing that are in our portfolio. We cannot keep them current with a $3 billion budget for capital improvements.
Secretary, when you were confirmed by the United States Senate, I congratulated on you on having survived the United States House. Do you ever feel like you've jumped from the frying pan into the fire when you went to the executive branch?
Some days.
Yield back, Mr. Chairman.
I thank you so much.
The gentleman